Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of January 28th, 2025. If we could stop in the Carver Town Hall Meeting Room number 1, these proceedings will be videotaped and rebroadcast by Area 58 TV. If we could salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We have an A&R that is continued. The purpose of this plan is to do a lot line adjustment between lot 58-2 and lot 2A. A portion of lot 2A, as shown as parcel A, is to be combined with lot 58-2 for Johnson Cranberries Limited Partnership. Assessors map 5758, lots 2A2, and located at Purchase Street and Fosdick Road in a residential agricultural zoning district.
Good evening. My name is Tom Mellahan. I'm with the applicant, Renewable Energy Development Partners. So I think where we left it, there was discussion about a condition on the plan, and I wanted to just get to see that condition before you guys went ahead with that. And I talked to Tom Bott about it. He said he might have some discussion with the board about it. And so I guess I'll just leave it with you, Tom. Is there?
Okay, if you could, Mr. Planner.
I'd be happy to use this through the chair. This is an A&R plan to take two lots and separate part of one lot into another. Massachusetts general law is pretty explicit on an A&R plan. The planning board shall, within 21 days, forthwith endorse a plan that shows frontage on a way. It doesn't talk about acreage. It doesn't talk about anything other than frontage on a way, one of three ways. So this is an A&R plan that has frontage on a subdivision way over here on Lee Street, I think it is. This is the lot 2 in the back, and this is the subdivision or the frontage on the public way here. Both lots have frontage. This is the most rudimentary part of the planning board's business, is looking at an A&R plan and saying, yeah, that has frontage and it's on a way. Sometimes the folks will, but you have to have access to the way. So I brought up our GIS, and the GIS here shows both of these properties. There are wetlands on both properties, but there's no wetlands between the frontage in the buildable portion of the lot. And while there are wetlands, you can get around them. So this plan is perfectly appropriate for the planning board's endorsement as a plan. They're existing lots. They're on a way. They both would appear to be buildable based on frontage and acreage. And the board should endorse this plan forthwith based on what Massachusetts general law says. In addition, I'd like to thank the applicants for their flexibility. They submitted this plan on, I think it was December 18th. The 21 days were up on January 9th. So the option for the planning board was, if the applicant wasn't willing to extend the date to our January 11th meeting, the planning board would have to have a special meeting prior to the January 11th meeting in order to avoid a constructive approval of the plan. So we have before you is the most innocuous of A&R plans. It doesn't create any additional lots. It takes two existing lots and simply does a swap with them on some acreage by changing an interior lot line. It's perfectly appropriate for the planning board to endorse this with no notifications, nothing other than a motion by the board to endorse the plan and an affirmative vote of 3-2 or 3 to whatever. You just need a simple majority vote.
All right.
If I might.
Then I will ask
If I might.
Any questions?
Yes, just for clarification, the board did endorse this plan. There were no conditions attached to it. The simple disclaimer that we typically put on all A&R plans was what was required, and that was the issue. That this plan does not create a buildable lot, and that that any buildable, to be considered a buildable lot, it must meet the requirements of the town zoning bylaws. And that's the one we typically put on it. It wasn't on the plan last time, and we wanted to make sure it was put on. Other than that, I think we all voted unanimously to approve this at the time.
But the board didn't endorse it. The
No, because...
board didn't take a vote.
The board did take a vote, but the applicant preferred that that the disclaimer that we typically put on it, he had questions about it, and that's what he wished to pursue before we finalized.
So we don't have to have the disclaimer. We can go ahead and we can approve it.
My opinion is, this is perfectly legit as far as Massachusetts general law goes, to endorse the plan forthwith because it shows frontage on a way.
What is the typical disclaimer we put on A&R plans?
Well, if a lot has frontage but doesn't have acreage, the board might make a note, something to the effect that this does not note that the plan complies with zoning, or something to that effect.
Well, typically we put that on there.
Yeah. But in this case, the plan absolutely complies with zoning. It has
And it
frontage on a way.
Right. And it was
Lots
not.
exist. There's no
This plan
wetlands
was-
in the middle of them.
And the information provided did not clarify that any of these acreages were accessible, and that is why we requested the typical disclaimer that we are not creating buildable lots, and that is up to the building commissioner's decision whether it's a buildable lot.
So I'm going to look for a motion to approve this.
Motion to approve the A&R of lot 58-2 and 2A for Johnson Cranberries at Purchase Street and Fosdick Road.
I second that motion.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gasky.
Aye.
Mr. Shea says aye.
Ellen Sedillo says aye.
Mary Ellen Williams says aye.
And Kevin Robinson says aye.
Thank you very much for your time, folks.
All right, Tom, we'll get it endorsed tonight. You can pick it up during the week.
During the week?
Yeah.
Okay, super. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much. So, Mr. Chair, if I can interject for just a moment. So we're going to continue the public hearing for 44, Route 44 development, but a little, well, actually, next in order is the tree hearing. So I just want to make sure the tree hearing didn't get pushed to the bottom of the development, because we have our tree warden here with us as well.
Sure.
So we, if I may continue, we did receive a request for continuance for Route 44 development in order for them to continue reworking their plans based on the conversations that we've been having with them and town council moving forward. So they've requested a continuance until February 25th. We let most people know that there is a meeting on on February 11th. We also noted that's the meeting that we're going to have at the high school for the town meeting warrant articles, and most folks opted to not get on that meeting agenda and just push it to the 25th. So the Route 44 is requesting a continuance of their hearing until February 25th, 2025.
All right, so we can take care of that without having to take it out of order, right?
Yeah, for some reason, it's cold medicine talking to me.
No problem. All right, well, then I will ask for a motion to continue this until the 25th of February.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing and special permit for Route 44 Development LLC for an amendment for previously approved defined subdivision entitled Defined Subdivision Plan for Route 44 Development, etc., etc. Located off Green Park Way in Carver, Mass. until February 25th, 2025. Carver Town Hall, Meeting Room 1, 7 p.m.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
I will not be here on the 25th.
Okay. You may want to pass that along to them.
Will do.
That will be one member short.
Will do. Well, the a subdivision plan is a simple majority vote.
Okay.
A special permit is not. In the absence of the Mullen Rule, they'll have to just deal with that.
Okay.
Right?
All right, as long as you can let them know.
We will let them know.
All right then, Mr. Gasky.
Aye.
Mr. Shea says aye.
Ellen Sedillo says aye.
Mary Lynn Williams says aye.
And Kevin Robinson says aye. Okay. We have a public hearing on a scenic road tree hearing for 14 High Street. Mr. Woods would be kind enough to come up and speak to us of this.
So may I read the public hearing notice?
Please.
In accordance with General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15C, the Scenic Road Act, and General Law, Chapter 8763, Public Shade Trees, the Carver Planning Board, in conjunction with the tree warden, will hold a public hearing on January 28th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in Carver Town Hall, Meeting Room 1. The subject of the hearing is the removal of 2 trees on a scenic road within the public right-of-way at 14 High Street, a 32-inch ash and a 42-inch oak. Any persons interested in wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. A copy of the plan is on file in the planning department and may be reviewed during normal business hours. On the screen here is a GIS map that shows the location of those 2 trees. This is typically a function that we never hear anything about because the tree warden deals with these things on a very regular basis. But because this is on a scenic road, the tree hearing is held before the planning board, with the planning board voting whether to remove the trees or not. John is here to talk about the condition of the trees and how, basically how we got to this point.
All right. The floor is yours.
Good evening, thank you. So yeah, I was approached by the resident at 14 High Street about the removal of these 2 trees. They are dead, they're dropping branches. There is a bus stop right next to these trees. One of the trees is right in front of the resident's house. So it basically just comes down to a safety issue. So other than, without this new scenic road thing, I would have already had, probably would have taken these down, or at least been, planning it more than I was. So I'm here just to get your consideration, approval to move forward to remove these trees.
All right. Do I have any questions from anybody on the board regarding these trees?
Are they a danger?
Yes, I believe they are. Yep, they're dropping branches in the street. The resident calls me, every couple months to let me know large branches are still falling. It's right next to a bus stop. And once it's put in my mind, any windstorm, I'm thinking about it.
Yep.
If those go down, it's, it's
Will
on
they be
me.
replanted?
I would talk to the resident, probably not. I would say probably not, no.
And we've had an arborist look at these?
I have not,
Connie,
just
you need to
myself.
lean in the microphone. We can't quite hear you over the...
All right.
They're deceased. To me, it's a no-brainer. They should be removed before somebody gets hurt.
Sad.
Anyone else? This is public hearing,
Public hearing,
correct? So there's public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come forward? Seeing none, I think the only thing that I would ask is that when you do go out to do the work, then maybe possibly you could ask them if they wouldn't mind planting 2 trees,
I can ask them that.
elsewhere on the property. That wouldn't be a problem down the road,
Yep, that's
So-
I can definitely do that.
I think that would be fair.
Okay.
All right. Well then, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
I will make the motion to approve the scenic route.
Ellen, you need to lean into the mic a little bit.
Sorry. I'd like to make a motion to eliminate those trees on High Street, 14 High Street.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
Who is the second?
Connie.
Further discussion? Seeing none? Ms. Gasky?
Aye.
Mr. Shea says aye.
Ellen Sedillo says aye.
Mary Ellen Williams says aye.
And Kevin Robinson says aye. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
So can I take another moment to talk about some trees? So
Please.
as a segue to a previous tree, actually poll hearing with the select board, there were some trees removed from Wareham Street as a part of a poll hearing. I've had a number of conversations with the folks at Eversource, and they would like to come in and talk about the potential for some sort of tree planting program. Their poll hearing was to put 2 poles in at this piece of property. As oftentimes happened, the select board asked me, comments on it. So I went out and discovered they had already put the poles in, and they'd also put 8 more poles in down the street that they never asked anybody about. Things happen. So the conversation that we had with Eversource is about making amends for that. The select board, held the hearing for a few days. And so we're going to schedule something with the resource from Eversource to come in and talk about some supplemental tree planting and things like that. And that will likely be at a meeting probably February, since February is going to be sort of busy, because 25th is going to be, a big show. And the 11th of the hearings will probably be March when we have those folks come in and talk about that.
Well, it probably wouldn't be a good idea anyways to replant until March, so that's fine. That's good. So how did that come about?
Well, like I said, when people submit requests for a tree hearing, it's to put utility poles in the ground, sometimes to replace ones that are there, but or for new poles. And in this case, they needed to run a new line from the Wareham town line. And these, for whatever reason, were the only 2 poles that they put a request in for, even though there were 10 more down the street. And so when I went out to look, not only were the poles there, but the trees were freshly cut within the road right away. Now, the thing about Carver and a lot of old roads like Wareham Road is that the right-of-way is sort of flexible. And in fact, in some places, like on Federal, there's places where the right-of-way, where the pavement, isn't even in the right-of-way. The right-of-ways to the lines where the pavement's supposed to be. In some places, it just veers off the road and goes through the woods and then comes back 100 yards later or so. So in older roads and things like that, the right-of-ways tend to vary. But it was easy enough to figure out that these were in the road right away. Mistakes do happen, and sometimes people get busy, and sometimes they're a utility, and you figure, well, we got a lot of trees and a lot of trucks, and we screw it up. And Eversource pretty much said, yeah, we screwed up. Sorry about that. So they're going to come back, talk about it, and make amends.
Okay. So you'll reach out to them and
Yeah, we're just
put
talking
that
about
on
when.
the agenda
Yeah,
sometime in March?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else need to ask? All right then. All right, we have a public hearing notice on the application of Meadow Solar One LLC, care of New Leaf Energy, requesting a special permit and site plan review pursuant to section 290-3-6.7, 290-4-3.4, 290-2-2.3, 290-5-3, 290-3-6.7, and 290-4-3.4 of the Carver zoning bylaw, located at 19C Ward Street in Carver, Mass. Assessors map 120, lot 6-1, in the residential agricultural zoning district. The applicant is proposing to construct floating solar arrays on 4 human-made agricultural reservoirs. Any persons interested in wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. A copy of the plan is on file at the planning department and may be reviewed during normal business hours.
You guys have the plan set on your laptop? Because if you do, you can plug right in here.
I do have a hard copy on a board. 19C is the address. That could be the older one, but
So I'm going to let you plug into your laptop, and I'm going to put it over here, and you guys can have full control of the screen, right? there you are.
Actually,
Grab a few chairs.
Oh, really? Question of the mayor. I didn't ask any questions of Sarah. Maybe it was another problem.
Well, it's here now.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Matt Swansberg. I'm a project developer at New Leaf Energy. We have Dean and Annie with us today. They're both civil engineers at New Leaf Energy, and we're here to discuss a proposed floating solar project on man-made ponds located at 19C Ward Street here in Carver. We've been involved on this site for quite a while. New Leaf Energy is a spin-off of Borrego Solar Systems, which developed and constructed an existing ground-mounted solar project on this property. And also since then, and you can see it here, this is an existing solar project on the property. Since then, New Leaf Energy has obtained a special permit for a ground-mounted solar project to be located just west of that existing solar project that you see here on this layout. And if we have a... Yep, yeah, great. So you can see there on the western side of the existing array, the proposed ground-mounted solar project that has a special permit. That project hasn't been constructed. It's been delayed, just like many other solar projects in Southeast Massachusetts, due to interconnection timelines. We're waiting on Eversource to upgrade infrastructure, specifically install transformers and upgrade circuits to enable these solar projects to interconnect. And this is one of those projects that was in what we call Plymouth Group Study 1, which was a group of many projects in the area that all received interconnection service agreements this past summer. I believe it was August, September timeline. Those projects had been in an interconnection study for years. And finally, those interconnection agreements were issued. But the next challenge is, like I just mentioned, the timeline associated with upgrading all of the infrastructure necessary to physically connect these projects and safely and reliably operate these projects. So the ground mount is sort of on hold until we get a little bit closer and a better idea of what the interconnection upgrade timeline looks like. And we've been using this time to explore adding additional solar to this property. And working with the landowner, we have come up with this proposed design of putting floating solar in 4 ponds. So you can see here, south of the existing array in the project with the special permit, a southern pond that has 2 floating solar arrays in it. Further up to the east, there is a nice little rectangle pond with a floating solar array in it. Just to the west of that, there's a floating solar array, and then to the north, an additional floating solar array. These floating solar projects are being developed for the Massachusetts SMART program that's administered by the Department of Energy Resources. Floating solar projects are allowed to participate in the SMART program. And so our goal here is to be able to move a ground-mounted solar project and floating solar project forward using the interconnection agreement that we currently have in hand for the ground-mounted project that has the special permit. There's a lot of words that I just said. But before I pause, I'll make a note of a couple of more things here related to the floating solar in the ponds. You'll notice that we're not using the entire pond surface area. The SMART program only allows a floating solar project to receive an incentive as long as it's 50% of the pond surface area or smaller. And I think, overall, that's generally, how we got to what's currently on site to this proposed floating solar project. And then I'm going to turn it over to the Dean to talk you through a little bit more in detail of the layout, and then we can open it up to any questions that the board has.
So,
State your name, please.
oh, sorry, Dean Smith, civil engineer with New Leaf Energy for the record. Just to give you a little more detail about the system, we're talking with two different vendors of floating solar arrays, AccuSolar and Seal and Tear. So we haven't determined which of those systems we'll be using, so we provided some details for both of those in our application package. The AccuSolar system is similar to a floating dock in the way that it's constructed. In fact, that same company constructs floating docks, so they use the same kind of technology for theirs. Seal and Tear uses a polymer float system. Both systems, the angle of the modules is relatively flat, so in either case, they're not very far off the water surface, between 2 and 3 feet off the water surface. So they're low, so there's not a lot of visual exposure to the surrounding areas. We have been working with the vendors to obtain data sheets for the materials of construction. They consider some of that proprietary, so we're working with them. They've told us that there are no hazardous materials in the construction, but we will be able to provide that. They said they will be able to release that to us. In addition to that, we contracted with a lake contractor, Wetland and Waters, and they went out and did some baseline testing that's been included in your packet. Dissolved oxygen, they measured turbidity of the water. They looked at vegetation and looked for other species that might be using the water bodies. So that report has been included for your review. These are, as Matt said, they're used for the agricultural operation that's there, the cranberry growing. So the owner is concerned about the water quality as well and is interested in making sure that there is no impact there. Proposed in that report is a program of monitoring that would be seasonal and would be ongoing up to and after the construction of the units to monitor the condition of the water quality. The interconnection, there would be a single interconnection for the ground mount and the floating solar project. That is located, if you go to the next sheet, up adjacent to Ward Street. There's an existing interconnection there that is on overhead poles on the west side of the existing driveway. Our proposed interconnection, we're proposing ground-mounted equipment so that there's less visual impact up there. There is an adjacent residence to the east. So it would go from those pad-mounted equipment up to an existing pole on the south side of Ward Street for the interconnection. Access to the property is largely through existing bog roads. They've been used with a lot of heavy vehicles, so they're very adequate for access to the property, both during construction and once it is in operation. The fire department was out there and reviewed the access ways previously when we permitted the other expansion project. So mostly the access ways are existing. There are a couple of small turnarounds near the interconnection area, and then there are two small equipment areas associated with the floating project that are down adjacent to the floating arrays. So very little additional impervious area is proposed with this. Aside from that, we're here to answer any questions that the planning board might have. That's really the basics of the project. We did come and present to you in an informal meeting previously. The only change to our proposal since then is that we added the fourth reservoir that's on the eastern portion of the project.
So you added one?
Yeah,
That's why there's five then instead of, it says 4?
Well,
Or is
there are
one
4
considered two?
reservoirs that we're constructing on. So we had proposed the 4 on the western portion there that are adjacent to the existing system. The bottom pond, the bottom reservoir 1 is what we refer to it as, has 2 separate floating arrays.
Okay.
So that's where the 5 arrays comes from.
All right. And maybe you could just explain the interconnection again regarding each individual floating array. How does that take place?
The electrical lines would go to those equipment areas that are proposed, the 2 small ones, and then everything is underground in a medium voltage trench.
So they go
that-
underground into the water?
Well, there are 2 options for that right now, depending on which vendor is the one that provides the floating arrays. The AccuSolar that's more like a floating dock can construct a gangway out to the array. And so the electrical lines would be hung along that in that case. Seal and tear, it would be out in the water, and the electrical lines would go underwater up to the equipment area.
Okay.
Who actually benefits by this solar? Is it geared towards the public, or is it, I need to know more about that.
Yeah, I can answer some of those questions. So the Massachusetts SMART program is our local solar program that provides us with the framework and structure as developers to deploy this scale solar project. When I say this scale, I'm referring to what we consider a distributed generation solar project. So that's a solar project that connects to in this case, Eversource's utility infrastructure on their street. And we're of a maximum system size of 5 megawatts AC. So a distributed generation project under 5 megawatts AC is able to participate in this SMART program. And the benefit of the solar goes to what we call offtake. So for every kilowatt hour that a solar project in this program generates, there is something called an alternative on-bill credit that's generated. And those credits are allocated to individuals' utility bills. Oftentimes it's through community shared solar programs. If you're a resident that has a lot of trees around their house or doesn't have a roof facing the appropriate direction for rooftop solar, you can still obtain utility bill savings from solar by participating in a community shared solar program. And those credits that are going to reduce your bill are being generated by these solar projects in the SMART program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may.
Please.
C4.0. Number 9 right there. That looks like it's going into the ground.
That detail is the ground mount system. This plan set was started for the ground mount system.
Okay, but why is it included in these plans? It just adds confusion to the whole thing.
Right, it shouldn't have been included on that sheet. It's not representative of the floating system. The next page has the two different options for the floating system.
Same with the standalone light mounting, I take it.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm asking if it's more or less the same with the standalone light mounting?
Yes, that would be used at those equipment areas. It would be motion sensitive, so it wouldn't illuminate unless there was motion there in that area. It's about 8 to 9 feet tall, and it's shielded and directed downward, so it only casts light in the direct vicinity of the equipment area.
And where would that be located? And
There would be one at each of those small equipment areas that are shown on the site. If you look on the plan, what we call Reservoir 2, which is that center one, at the southeast corner of that, there's a small equipment area. And then down at the south end of the project near Reservoir 1, there's one right. There's one right in the northeast corner there. So those would have a fence, like is shown on the details there, around the equipment area. The only detail that doesn't apply is that rack cross-section, which does apply to the sister project, but not to this set.
are you putting a fence around the reservoirs?
We are working with the owner on that. The agricultural operation is going to continue. They use those reservoirs for irrigation and other purposes for the agricultural use. AccuSolar, the vendor, can place fencing around the floating array itself. Seal and Tear doesn't have that option, so we're working with that. We don't want to fence off the entire reservoir to restrict the access of the owner for the agricultural use.
Understandable. My concern is going to be that the wildlife still depends on this for a water source, and whether it's man-made or not, it's there, they still use it, and we want them to still be able to access it appropriately. Turtles, deer, whatever's in the area. Is there, I see one of your arrays is, where's the nearest residential home to this?
There is a subdivision that is to the west, Canterbury, right there.
Okay, that's a fair distance off of.
Yeah, we're mostly surrounded by other cranberry growers. There is the Cedar Meadow, not sure exactly what it is, but it's to the northeast, but it's a much further distance.
Yeah, the Great
And then there are
Swamp.
some individual residents of some of the adjacent growers, but they're further away than the Canterbury subdivision as well.
Right, reservoirs fill and they empty, when it's dry they're lower, when it's wet they're fuller. What are you basing your percentage on coverage on?
It's the normal water level. The variation in the water levels is based on the agricultural use. So when they're flooding bogs or things like that, we are expecting a variation of about 3 feet in the water surface. But the determination is based on the normal water elevation.
And you feel that in dry weather that they maintain this particular being full?
These are 8 to 10 feet deep, so there would always be substantial water in the ponds. The anchoring systems would be accommodate that change in the water elevation. If under some extreme drought conditions or something, the water was taken out, they can sit on the bottom of the pond.
Well, I'm not expecting that they empty the reservoirs during the agricultural system, agricultural season for, flooding the bogs and everything, freezing them over in the winter, but how long does it take the bog to recharge? How low do they get? And what kind of size difference are we looking? And you say the normal high, is that based on the average high over the course of a year? Or is that just based on what it was yesterday?
It's based on the typical elevation there. Most of the year, they're not taking large quantities out of those ponds. So for most of the year, it's pretty consistent.
Well, what did you base this?
It was the surveyed water, edge of water is what it was based on. We did bathymetric surveys of each of the water bodies to determine the depth, and they located the edge of water around the water body as well. So that was the area that was used for those calculations.
And when was that done?
That was done in November, I believe. It was just in the last few months.
Okay.
Are there fish in there?
There may be some. I don't know. There might be some notes in the water report that if they noted anything there. They haven't been stocked or anything of that nature.
Would it affect the fish if there are fish in there?
It shouldn't. I mean, it does create some shading of the pond. There were some studies done of similar systems out in California, and there weren't any significant impacts noted of that nature. In fact, some of the shading could yield beneficial results as well. So it was pretty much a wash in that regard in terms of the effects on the environmental.
Yeah, and if I may, I think that's why, and correct me if I'm wrong, these are only usable on man-made ponds. If you had a natural pond that had a habitat already there for, fish, tadpoles, and things like that, you can't put those into essentially a natural pond.
Correct. And the state, under the incentive program, is specifically targeting these types of water bodies for these systems. And there's some information from DEP in your packet to that extent as well. Their recommendations for this type of use on this type of water body, and some other frequently asked questions and things that are associated with this type of use.
Thank you.
I think there are some other example projects.
You gotta tell us who you are when you say something.
Sorry, Tom. Matt Swansburg, project developer, New Leaf. I'll just add to that I believe there are some example projects in the packet as well. One particular project is a seal and tear project, one of the manufacturers that we're looking at for this particular project. And they have a really interesting floating solar system in New Jersey that's on a drinking water reservoir, and that went through the New Jersey DEP permitting process as well. So there are floating solar projects out there in the US, just not necessarily here in the Northeast yet, but we are looking to use some of the tried and tested manufacturers that are out there.
Question with regard to the water source for the reservoirs, the man-made reservoirs. Are they, is it just rainwater, or are they controlled, are there other flumes or something like that to feed the water into them? Or, I'm sure there's controlled water going out, but water coming in, where's the water come from?
As far as I know, it's just the rainwater as a source. There's no inflow or outflow from these reservoirs, either from offsite or draining off.
Well, logically, if they're used to flood bogs, there has to be some outflow, right?
There isn't any controlled outflow of these. They're just isolated reservoirs.
Well, if they're used for agricultural purposes to flood bogs, how does the water get from the reservoir to the bog? By magic?
They pump them.
No, rainwater
Crystal
and
Foley's.
from the groundwater, they do pump water back and forth between the different water bodies.
I'm used to a more old-fashioned way of doing things, I guess.
That is old-fashioned.
What's that?
It's, the Cristofoli pump is old-fashioned.
Well, pulling the boards out and letting the water flow is
Yeah.
even better, I think.
That's between bogs. but-
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
as far as the anchoring these, how are they anchored?
We are proposing anchoring below the water surface. There are a number of different options available. There's a helical screw that can be used. It can be ballasted on the bottom of the pond with a heavy weight. We're looking at an anchor that is basically a flat metal plate. It has a sharp point and it's pushed into the slope of the pond below the water. And then when it's pulled back, that plate retracts and provides the anchoring.
Given the questions about the variance of the amount of water in one of these reservoirs, what, obviously you've got more slack, you've got more, to use a nautical term, you've got more rod. How do you control lateral movement of the whole array when it's in there?
Yeah, there's variable tension there. We will have a final design. We just have a preliminary design on that right now, but they're designed to accommodate that so that the tension is maintained and the system doesn't move to a large degree.
I assume there had to be something, but again, we're not terribly familiar in the Northeast with these, so.
There is, Matt Swansburg, there is actually one floating solar project, and it happens to be here in Carver. It's a tiny pilot project that was installed, I believe that's over on Purchase Street. And it's in an agricultural man-made pond, and it's been there, I think the landowner was telling me, it must have been before COVID, so 2018, 2019. So it's a nice little case study to be able to go and see, and you know, it's actually a seal and tear mini project as well.
Does anyone else, any abutter, use these reservoirs? Are they shared?
So through our title research, there are, just like on many cranberry bogs, water rights.
Yeah.
And we are going through our diligence with our title attorney to better understand what a butter's rights are.
Okay.
I won't be able to finance the project and get a title commitment if I can't demonstrate that my project isn't going to encumber the ability of somebody else to use their rights. So for all intents and purposes, we don't plan on encumbering anybody that does have rights, their ability to extract water from these ponds for their use. I will also point out, because you mentioned abutters, we have been in contact with all of our immediate abutters about this project. So everybody with a property line within 200 feet of a solar array has been contacted, and they've signed affidavits allowing us to reduce the property line setback from the 200 feet to the 50 feet.
Can we look at the entrance on sheet C21? What equipment is being added to the entranceway there?
It's those boxes to the right side of the roadway. There's a number of pad-mounted pieces of equipment there.
You're adding these 7 boxes?
Yes. That's what the utility requires in terms of the equipment for the interconnection.
And they're pad-mounted? Is there a residence next to this entrance?
There is a residence to the east of the property. There's a tree line along that property line. Right now, we haven't proposed any landscape buffering of that, but it certainly is a possibility and could be included as a condition.
I'd certainly recommend that, the noise, the sight of them. Are you adding any more telephone poles, or?
No, for this phase of the project, we wouldn't be adding any poles. We're connecting to an existing pole that's just to the right of that crosshatched area of the entranceway.
Now, is this related equipment to what's existing on site already? There's existing on-site solar, correct?
Yes, the interconnection is all pole mounted on the west side of the driveway. There's a series of poles along the west side. That's the existing interconnection. Everything goes underground from there for the existing system as well as what's proposed. So south of the interconnection equipment, everything goes underground.
All right, so, there's also one that's, you've been holding off on, that's been hanging in the books there in the wind for a little bit. Is that going to be, what, pole mounted, or where's that gonna end up in relation to these?
It's the same equipment.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
both projects are interconnecting at the same location because the interconnection approval that Matt has accommodates the size of the total of the two projects.
Okay, so why is this, I'm just asking because I don't know, why is all this equipment necessary if it's already going through the other poles?
That's for the existing system. So there's an existing array field. There's also an expansion of that that's a separate system. We have a ground mount approval from this board and the floating solar. So there are two projects that are still to be built. The existing poles serve the existing array field. So nothing can be added to that. It's serving the existing in-operation system.
Are you adding any more telephone poles to this?
No.
Okay.
Pad-mounted equipment, and we're using an existing pole at Ward Street.
All right. I'm gonna be looking for screening and sound buffer for the neighbors, especially for this equipment. I know it makes a constant noise, and I wouldn't want to live next to it, so I can't expect that they would either.
Yeah, that hum is gonna get really old. What's the proposed megawatt output?
The proposed system that we're showing here is 2.5 megawatts.
Okay,
DC.
so along with the other two systems, what's our total output that we're looking at from this property?
Well, Matt Swansburg, I don't know the system size. I wasn't involved in the project that was constructed that's currently operating, so I don't know what the system size of that is. But for the project that currently has a special permit, the combination between that ground mount and the proposed floating solar is going to be somewhere between 4 and 4.5 megawatts DC.
And if I'm recalling correctly, don't hold me to it, I believe that existing system is just over 2 megawatts DC.
Including what has been permitted and what is existing, I know this isn't an issue because it's based on the pond size, but what percentage of this property is going to be covered in solar?
I don't know that I could guess at that off the
That's
top
okay.
of my head, but we can
That's okay.
certainly get that answer for you.
Because I know
It's a
you-
fairly large property.
Yeah.
And the southern pond extends onto an adjacent property that is also under common ownership. So we noticed the adjacent properties from both of those parcels. They're quite large. I would say, something less than a quarter of the main parcel is covered, and it might be substantially less than that. Because there are still operational bogs and a lot of roadways and whatnot on the property. So there's a substantial amount of open area aside from these solar projects.
The Conservation Commission is going to require monitoring on these, I take it?
They didn't necessarily require monitoring, we offered it.
Okay.
And we appeared at their meeting last Wednesday, and it was pretty well received by them.
Yeah. Are you going to monitor water temperature in regards to it too? Okay.
Temperature, dissolved oxygen, and clarity
All right.
is what's proposed by our consultant.
So, with the new regulations being discussed with DOER, are you guys keeping in contact, and do you plan to build to those new regulations, or Are you trying to get in here before all the new regulations come out?
So this project, Matt Swansburg, this project will likely have to participate in the existing SMART program because of the date of the interconnection agreement. The rules that you're referring to for the updated SMART program are not finalized.
Right.
And the proposed regs state that a project that has an existing interconnection agreement is going to be governed by the existing SMART program. So we are developing this project with that in mind.
So you're trying to get in under the wire? Gotcha.
Well, we don't have another option to,
Well, you can't connect, so why build? I mean, you've got another project that still hasn't been built, and you're throwing this out there, you still can't connect. So you're doing this to lock in the old regs.
so I don't think I
So-
understand the question, because the date of the interconnection agreement that we have determines, as of now, what's proposed, which program the floating solar project can participate in. So whether or not we,
Yeah, again,
and
you-
whether or not we permit the project today or in 6 months, the floating solar project would still be governed by the existing rules.
All right, all these things are pursued with the understanding that things are going to change, and everybody tries to get in under the wire. It happens on the regular around here. So with regards to page C41, number 2, the equipment, the concrete equipment pad, can you break that down?
So which detail are you looking at?
C4.1, number 2.
Okay, next sheet. So, Dean Smith, for the record, that's our standard concrete pad detail. Normally, the area would be over-excavated down to the frost depth and then replaced with suitable bearing material under the concrete pad itself. So that's what you're seeing here is removal of unsuitable materials and frost susceptible materials and replacement with suitable gravel materials that won't be affected by that.
Last question I think I have in regards to the ground-mounted system. I expect the neighbor's property with residential on is immediately to the right of the property line there?
There is an existing bog system that's directly to the, you're speaking about the west side
I
of,
see it in the very north, directly to the right of the roadway where it meets Ward Street. That
that is a
the next-
cranberry
the next
bog
one to the
on
right.
that side. On the right side, there's a residential lot, yes.
Okay.
Right there.
And you'll be able to secure the 50-foot requirement from them too?
The 50-foot setback applies to the solar use. The interconnection equipment isn't subject to that same setback.
I'll look into that myself. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions?
None at the moment.
I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience who would like to come forward. Please come forward and state your name.
Oh, well, here's the microphone. Linda Jacobs, Linda Jacobs, Carver resident. I just, for the engineers, well, for any of you, I don't understand why agricultural property can be used for this purpose, a commercial purpose. Can you explain that to me?
I could be mistaken, but I believe it's because the state allowed it.
The state allows it. So would you, So does the state have a reason? That just doesn't make
I
sense to
couldn't
me.
explain it any more than that, but we're under that onus that the state.
Okay. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm new to all of this kind of development of this area. I've only lived here 3 years and just been aware of commercial use of some of the agricultural property and how water is accessed and things. So I'm certainly not an engineer, but my understanding, such as it is that when these man-made ponds are created and we're actually accessing the aquifer. When digging down to a certain depth, that's where the water comes up for the ponds. And so my concern is just as in with, well, my concern is for this project as it is for other agricultural uses of contaminating the aquifer, which is our only source of drinking water here. So there's going to be things floating in there and anchored in there, and what is going to be the impact on our water? That's what I'm worried about. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs.
So, there's still something going on with Concom, aren't they still investigating something over there with regards to this project and other projects?
I'm not aware of it.
Do you guys have a final decision from the Conservation Commission?
Dean Smith, for the record, we requested that they continue us until February 19th, just in case this board had comments that required any modifications to our proposal. We didn't want to get an approval from them and then have to go back and amend it again if there was a change that affected their jurisdiction.
Typically, we work off of an order of conditions. Sorry, typically we work off orders of conditions in regards to the Conservation Commission.
They were ready to vote.
Okay.
They didn't suggest any special conditions. It would just be their typical conditions. But again, I think there's a record of the discussion there. They did not take a vote yet.
We haven't heard back from Fuss and O'Neill yet?
We have not. I have a question, though. Do you have data on depth of groundwater in this area?
We did do bathymetric surveys of the reservoirs. The water bodies themselves are between 8 and 10 feet deep. Just to speak a little bit to the question from the audience here, that's the groundwater aquifer, and that's what supplies the water to these ponds. The drinking water aquifer is much, much deeper.
No, it's not.
So there are different aquifers.
No, it's not. Most of the wells in town are between 25 and 30 feet. And it's all connected, all the way up to these ponds.
So we'll look forward to hearing from Mr. Glines or a
Yep.
representative there.
Excellent, and we, if I may, so we took a site walk previously with the Conservation Commission. Planning Board was invited, but couldn't make it, so we need to schedule a site walk for this. And I wonder, and I'm just throwing it out there, what the prospects are for doing a site walk to this, as well as taking a look at the smaller beta project. Is it possible to get access to that so the board can maybe see one of these in operation?
Matt Swansberg, for the record. Yeah, I can reach out to that landowner and see if he's open to that. I think we could work something out.
Usually people are kind of proud of something cool like that.
Yeah, I think he is pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
One other thing, with regards to the Eversource and the interconnection and stuff like that, is what Eversource is doing, are they going to be able to support that size of a connection at that location? Typically, these things are spread out over several different, this size of arrays and stuff like that is spread out. And we're looking at, 7 to 8 megawatts coming out.
Mass Wansburg, for the record, we have an interconnection agreement for this that supports.
I understand you have an interconnection agreement. Are they going to need to do more work in order for you to connect? Is this something that's going to have to come back in 2 or 3 years when everything expires and you guys are asking for an extension because Eversource, once again, has to come back out and build more stuff in order for you guys to connect? As is what's been happening for the last 5-10 years with all of these solar projects that are all over town. None of them are being built because we're waiting on Eversource to upgrade the networks. Is this something that they're going to have to come back out again and delay y'all even further?
So I can only use the information that Eversource provides us. I can't see into the future.
So they haven't provided have they provided your engineers with enough of a warm fuzzy that you're going to be able to build this thing and actually connect within a decent time frame instead of waiting another 5 years for stuff to get built and creating more havoc for everybody?
The upgrades that will enable these projects to move forward were approved by the DPU prior to the interconnection agreements being issued. So we are confident that those upgrades that were approved will support the ability for this project to interconnect.
Okay, but have you had that conversation with Eversource?
We meet with Eversource bi-weekly and get updates on their progress, and that's what we are able to operate off of. They're moving
And they've
forward with
given you a confidence that that they will be able to support that power coming out at that interconnection?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Bullock, from Ms. Jacobs' question regarding aquifer, who can we contact or who can we reach out to regarding the depth of the aquifer?
Well, I would venture to say that when we get our report from Fuss and O'Neill, there'll likely be some discussion about that, and if there's not, I'll talk to Andy about some of the groundwater issues.
Okay, thank you. All right then, what I would like to do is for us to agree on a time for a site walk. And what was the location of the other one in case we want to pop over and take a look at it? Where, say Purchase Street?
Yeah, it's up at Purchase Street. If you don't mind, would like to talk to the landowner first.
Well, that was going to be my next
but-
question to you, is if you talk to them,
Yeah.
it might be a nice idea for us to take a look at that
Yeah.
and see that so that we can have something to compare it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've talked to him in the past about bringing the board by, and he seemed agreeable to that.
Okay.
Yep.
So we would want to do this, we have a lot going on, our next 2 meetings. So I don't think that we would want to try to get this in before early March, right?
Well, right now, the board is, give me a hint, paying to January 28th. So February 11th, we sort of reserved for town meeting articles. We could continue this till 2/25.
2/25 is a pretty busy night already.
It is, so we can look at that March schedule as well. But obviously, we're waiting for Fuss and O'Neill's review, which will impact, their changes to the plan. March 11th, suitable continuous date for you guys. I'll give you a chance to set up a time for the site visit and give the folks a chance to coordinate with both of these sites about taking a look at them. And takes us a couple weeks to get out there. That's 4.5 more minutes of sunlight we'll have.
Yeah. Well, I've asked that because I think we should probably try to make it the first or second week in March.
For the site visit?
for a
Because
site
it's nice
visit.
having it fresh
Yeah.
in our minds prior to
Yeah.
the meeting.
Second week would be preferred. I won't be here. I'll be in Indianapolis for the first week.
That's up to the 8th. So do we looking at the 10th? Is that what you're thinking, Mr. Gasky?
Say again?
Around March 10th then?
Yeah, what day is that?
It's a Monday.
We also have daylight
Yeah.
savings, so that is a big help on the 9th. How do each of you feel about the 10th?
I'm fine with the 10th.
Depends on what time of day.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, it can be later because we have daylight savings the
Yeah.
day before. So, what time works for you, Mr. Maynard?
Anytime after 4 o'clock.
Anytime after 4?
We had to do it earlier, I could probably arrange it, but that's,
Well, how does 5 o'clock sound on that Monday?
You can make that work.
It's a Monday?
Monday, yeah,
Yeah, I usually work Monday nights.
okay. I can always bring you out there at a later date, or what works for you after I,
Can we do it earlier than 5? Can Mr. Maynard take 4?
I wouldn't be able to get there at 4.
No.
How about 4:30?
I'm good.
4:30 is good for you? Does 4:30 work better for you, Ellen?
No, because
Still.
I usually get there around 4
Sure,
to work.
sure.
Sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. I can always go with you Tuesday, the next day, just to bring you out to show you what we
Sure,
looked
I
at.
don't want to hold everybody up.
No, you're not gonna hold everybody up. That's fine. So, good with you, Connie?
So March 10, 4:30?
And do, Mary Ellen?
I think I can do it.
Okay.
I may have an issue,
Well, if
but
it
I think I
doesn't,
can
if
do
it doesn't work, we can
Yeah.
go Tuesday.
Is 5 better for you, Mary Ellen?
Actually, a little earlier would be better, but I just have to check my schedule
Okay.
at work.
I personally can get there at 4:15 right from work, so that helps, 4:15. That's up to John and Connie as well. Ms. Maynard, 4:15?
Yeah, I've got more freedom now
I could do it.
with
Okay.
the afternoons.
All right, 4:15.
Okay. sounds good.
4:15, the 10th, and Ellen, if you can't make that, I can just bring you out there the next day to take a look
Okay.
at it.
Sounds good.
All right, and Matt, you'll see if maybe we can do something to take a look at that on our own.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Would you prefer to just swing by on your own individually, as a group? What logistically, what makes the most sense for you guys, and I can relay it to the landowner?
I think it'd be handier to have a guide out there to tell us what we're looking at.
It would be, it would be. I'm just thinking about the board and the fact that they have very little time.
Right.
You know, but I do think it would be a big help to see that, to have something to compare to. Maybe all of us can't necessarily make it. Whoever couldn't make it, that we could possibly look at it afterwards on a site walk. And whoever has to leave the meeting, if you have to leave the meeting early, then we could make arrangements for you to go back and visit it.
Even some pictures would be beneficial.
Got a camera. It's on my phone.
All right then, so we'll tentatively plan on swinging by there afterwards.
Perfect.
You know, if we have a quick, short meeting.
Yep.
You can swing in there afterwards, and if Mary Ellen can't stay with us, you could pass it on to him that she'd like to, just take a look at it.
I don't think that's gonna be a problem at all.
All right, that's good. All right, thank you then.
Thank you very
much. So we also have to, at this time, continue this to
I think we're talking March 11th?
March 11th. All right, can I have a motion to continue this to March 11th?
I'll make a motion to continue the application of Meadow Solar 1 LLC, requesting a site plan and special permit located at 19 Seaward Street in Carver, Mass. for a proposed floating solar array to March 11th, 7 PM, Carver Town Hall, Room 1.
Can I get a second on that?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none?
Aye.
Mr. Shea says aye.
Ellen Sedillo says aye.
Mary Ellen Williams says aye.
And Kevin Robinson says aye. Thank you. We'll see
Thank
you on
you.
the 10th.
Have a good night.
Can I see your minutes for a moment, Alan? If you have them, indeed.
Give that to Connie, I just need to have him back. 'cause I
Yeah,
have
I'll
a
give them
problem.
back to you. I only need them for a second.
All right, so, planning board member notes.
Ellen?
Yes, we're gonna start giving to Shane Gives Thanks Food Pantry, and by donating non-perishable food items, you can bring them to the Carver Town Hall. And the date is Thursday, January 23rd to Friday, February 14th. And once again, it's non-perishable food items, and we'd really appreciate it. Suggested items, deodorant, diapers, dish detergent, fluff, gravy, Jell-O, jelly, shampoo. Anything you can donate would be deeply appreciated by Shane's Food Pantry. Thank you.
If I may.
Yes.
We also have town elections coming up, so not a lot of, there's a lot of positions coming open, and not a lot of people have stepped up. So if you're thinking about it, take the steps and get it done. So papers have to be pulled by the 5th and submitted by the 7th of, so the 5th of March and submitted by the 7th of March. So if you've got a plan, please do.
This list from Shane.
We need everybody to step up and help fill these positions throughout the town. Keep us running smooth. Thank you.
Any other notes from members on the board? If not, Mr. Planner.
Alrighty, in your packet, you will find a notice of intent to convert Chapter 61A. Property, I'm pretty sure it's on the screen. This is the subject property for Wenham Land. This is the solar array that we were out at and took a walk out in the woods off of Wenham Road. So when folks are looking at converting the use from strictly agricultural to having this agricultural and solar component to it, it's up for that discussion. So the question is, does the board have any interest in exercising the town's right of first refusal to purchase the 10.23 acres of land to be leased for dual solar agricultural arrays? And believe the Conservation Commission and the assessors have already weighed in and not expressed any interest in purchasing this property. We looked at it before. It's on the end of a driveway. It doesn't actually have frontage. These folks are actually in front of the ZBA right now to get a variance in order to move forward with their project. But process is the process. They have, does the board have any interest in exercising their Chapter 61A option on this piece of land?
Can we discuss it? It doesn't say vote or discussion on the agenda, so.
This is, I think, how we've typically handled these. We can certainly put it on an agenda as an agenda item, but it's on the agenda saying Chapter 61A under Town Planner's Notes, Wenham Road. I said I put the map up on the screen as well.
So, is dual use is being proposed over the top of this, right?
Correct.
They have to take it out of conservation in order to do it?
Out of 61A. 61A is tax purposes, not out of conservation.
Close enough.
So if your land is either in agricultural or forestry, there are various versions of 61A. 61A for, I think, ag, 61B for recreation, maybe 61C for forestry. So it's a tax issue.
Yeah.
But when people get a break on their taxes, the town gets the right of first refusal. We've talked about them before for a couple parcels we could potentially put housing on. Leading into one, we passed on a couple others previously.
Is it on a priority protection list?
It's not.
It can't be, housing can't be put on it, so currently.
No, it's sort of dirt out in the woods, to be as unpoetic as I can be on my cold medicine speak.
So,
So the board says,
the developers are buying this property?
no, they're leasing it. But the lease requirement falls in there as well because you're changing the use of the property just strictly from agricultural.
So if you're changing the use of your property, you have to give the town the opportunity to buy it?
If it's in 61A. And then you have, I think it's 120 days from the date of the purchase and sale agreement to buy it. So then you got 120 days to come up with the money to decide to buy the property to match a bona fide offer.
But Mr. Mott, didn't they already buy it? Wenham, was it?
I thought it was a lease. I might be mistaken.
But it looks like they are entering into a lease, but the gentleman that's been in front of us, I believe his entity already purchased this.
I believe
From
they mentioned.
So they're
Yeah.
going
So they must have another
to
entity.
sublet
that-
it, so they're
yeah.
going to sublet it to whoever is going to operate the
Right.
solar array.
Right,
So
I
the
would have to
date
say
probably
so.
starts when it comes out of Chapter 61A, right?
What a freaking mess with all
But
this
it
money
says
like
the
this.
remainder will remain in
Well, I think
61.
that's likely the part that's not
That's not, yeah.
the subject of the arrays.
Yeah.
People
That's what makes
wonder
me
why
think
our
it's a lease.
Electric bill keeps going up.
Oh, it does say that there will be a lease. I'm kind of confused as to,
Yeah.
if you're putting it on the cranberry bog, that would be what's considered the 61A, I would think. But then it says that the landowner will continue to use the balance of the land for agricultural use, and therefore said balance of the land shall remain 61A classification.
Yeah, so they're going to continue to farm the entire thing, and as part of the dual use, they have to continue to farm under those arrays as well, and report out,
Okay.
to what
So-
extent they're.
It does say Wenham Land LLC is the owner of the property.
So they're leasing out the bogs in order to be farmed, in order to maintain, that's what's happening. That's what the lease is. The lease is for the landowner, the previous landowner, to continue to farm.
That's what it says, is to be
No, I
released.
think he's deceased.
Well, somebody's gonna be running the farm.
I-
Want the farm.
Yeah, it's perhaps the person who's going to maintain the bogs will be leasing it, I'm not quite sure, but it's a little confusing because I don't understand why a portion of the land would remain, but yet that's the portion that will have the solar,
Well, we
right?
can bring it back on the 11th and talk about it
Yeah.
some more if you like.
Yeah.
But I guess the underlying question is, does the
Yeah.
property have any value to the town from the perspective of the planning board?
I don't think it
Oh,
does,
it's
but
a
that's my
sale.
opinion.
Yeah, but I would like to hear from the people that are bringing this out of 61A, to kind of explain the spider web of,
There's a few layers.
Yeah, we're hearing them pretty regularly. That's likely the folks who have been here presenting their project.
Okay, but well, this is the first time I've heard of this.
Yeah, I think
So-
it may be that it's one of those things where like, oh yeah, we have to do that too. Because sometimes folks have a thing where they go, oh yeah, we have to do that too.
So when they purchased it, they kept it in 61A for that reason, probably to maintain the tax benefit, and said that there was no change in use.
Yeah, but if you sell a piece of property, I guess.
Yeah, if you keep it for the same use.
Correct.
You can carry it through with I believe, a notice of intent filed with the assessor's office. So that can remain in 61A, but once you change the use in any way, of which they clearly are by doing this.
I won't fight you on that. I said I won't fight you on that.
Well, no,
Just because I probably would. But so anyhow, do we want to take this to the 11th and have some more discussion about it? But the underlying question is, would we want it?
I don't think so, but if we'd like to discuss it more, then that would.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see much benefit to the town, especially if all the town would be getting is a strip of land and a bog, and the rest of it is.
I don't see much use for the town, but I also don't think we should be addressing it because it wasn't specifically outlined on the agenda.
I can appreciate that.
So my recommendation would be to bring it forward to
The 11th, and place it
the 11th.
as an item on the agenda.
But I personally don't have any interest in it, but I would not feel comfortable voting on it.
Yeah.
So, do I need a motion to,
No, we'll just bring it back on the 11th.
okay? Then that's what we'll do.
Put it on the 11th as an agenda item, talk about it at the school. So, we're not leaving quite yet, but since I said school, the next meeting is at Plymouth Carver High School for a town meeting zoning article.
Are we doing that in the cafeteria
In
or
the
the
auditorium.
auditorium?
Yeah, we were going to do it in the auditorium last time, but then Carver on Broadway broke out and they had the auditorium booked for somebody else, so we moved to the
Roger that.
cafeteria. So we're supposed to be in the auditorium for this one. I did also want to report that through the budget process, I did get recommendations that I meant to bring copies of them for the board tonight. So during the budget process, we submit a budget that included additional stipends for the planning board, the FinCom, and planning board. Also, the ZBAs also requested an additional stipend. So we presented that to the FinCom. Currently, as it's working through the process, the town administrator has made recommendations for cuts to various budgets. And one of those cuts are to our budget, including our other projects, budgets that we've used for things like surveys and cleaning up part of the habitat site. He also recommended not cutting the planning board's current stipend, but cutting the increase to the stipends. So right now, we have asked for the increased stipend, and the town administrator has said, I'm recommending not increasing those stipends as part of the budget process. So just want to let you know that.
Roger that.
All right. So we've got an A&R to sign before we go home tonight, and I think that's all I have. We got some minutes, I believe.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 17th, 2024 in order to open it up for discussion.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Well, no, I want to make amendment to it before we voted on it. On page 8, the last full paragraph, it says, right in the middle of the paragraph, it says, in the board's last meeting last year, the board's recommendation for this change was voted 2-3-0 and did not go on the warrant as it was voted down, but it was removed by the select board, and that was clearly discussed during the meeting. So I would like, voted down to be removed and removed by the select board.
That's where you at, Connie? Page 8, you said?
Yep, page 8, last full paragraph, right in the middle, you'll see the number 230. And it did not go on the warrant as it was voted down. I would like to remove the words voted down.
I do not see 2,
As it
3,
was.
I'm still looking for 2, 3.
Okay.
I'm on page 8,
Yep,
Looking at page 8.
last full paragraph.
last full paragraph, right in the middle, you'll see the numbers 230.
Nope.
I don't see it either.
Is your page 8 different than,
Are we December 17th?
yeah, so not the last page. You look like you're on the last page.
I'm on the one
I'm
that
with
says
John.
page 8.
John and I are looking at the same thing, Connie.
My page 8 starts with the paragraph, Mr. Bott speaks about the residential rate of development bylaw.
Nope.
No.
You got
So
it.
go back one more page. Does that one start?
Nope.
No.
I just printed those today.
Oh, you see, oh, you printed them, so that's why.
Chairman Robinson, their paragraph starts with Chairman Robinson.
So,
Being
under,
spelled wrong.
it's gonna be the second to last page in all likelihood, and the paragraph I'm looking at starts with Cornelius Shea speaks about increase in lot size.
Yeah, I'm at the bottom of page
Okay,
8.
that's,
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines, and I go to page 9.
okay, so on page 9, we
Okay.
got, it starts with the second line, 230, there it is.
Okay.
All
Which
right.
is,
I got the 230, so now, what do you like? What do you want?
The last two words in that sentence was voted down. It was removed, voted down should be removed and be replaced by, removed by the select board.
Removed by select board, okay, that's easy.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a change also.
All righty.
Not sure if this is going to match up, but mine is on page 3, or at least my page 3, the last paragraph, where it starts with Mr. Shea believes developing all these units in North Carver.
That's where I'm at, yep.
Okay, so when it talks about a few lines down, Mary Ellen Williams indicates she does not like this and does not support it, especially from a safety and financial standpoint. She also indicates different agencies have responded. That is not what I stated.
Okay.
What I stated was at a prior selectmen's meeting regarding the 40B, which is probably more than what you need to put in there. But my point was, it was stated at a prior selectmen's meeting that this project would put a strain on police, EMS, fire, and the school. But I just want to have deleted, have responded, because I never spoke to anybody about that.
So delete. So how would you like that to read?
I could say she also indicates different agencies that will have a negative impact on the town,
Okay.
such as police and fire.
She also indicated different agencies that it will have a negative impact. on
That would
town.
be fine.
Okay,
But I was not in communication with any agencies.
okay. So we got page 3 and page 8.5.
So I will changed by motion to approve the minutes of December 17th, 24 as amended.
Second?
I second that.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ms. Stagatsky.
Aye.
Mr. Shea says aye.
Ellen Sodillo says aye.
Mary Ellen Williams says aye.
And Kevin Robinson says aye. And I have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Oh, you gotta be quicker on the draw there, Alan.
Been waiting all night.
I got Sharpies I have not touched in the
Aye.
box over there. Take a Sharpie,
Mr.
sign
Shea?
a plan. Have a good night.
Looking for an aye.
Aye.
Ellen Sodillo says aye.
Mary Ellen Williams says aye.
Kevin Robinson says aye. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Good night, everybody.
Sorry, Kevin.